What I call the Glenhead letters are bound in a volume in Hornell's library. They're part of a bigger collection of correspondence from and about Crockett, and the immediate question might be, why did Hornell collect these? Part of the answer may be found in a letter written from 46 Brougham Street, Tranmere, Cheshire, on July the 15th, 1883. Crockett was then in his early 20s, and this is a decade before fame came calling upon him. The handwriting is horrendous, and so it's quite hard to make out a lot of the content, but the tone is humorous, as between good friends. Crockett has been tasked to review some poetry, and he isn't hugely complimentary about it. But apart from this, towards the end of the letter he writes,
I am much employed in geologic rambles, pleasantly employed as you may hap imagine. I may be in CD a few days in the end of September, and if so, I shall be down in Kirkcudbright. Keep all curious stones, etc., for me to see. I am always your friend, Sam Crockett. P.S. Shall be glad to hear from you at this address.
Not only does this attest to an established friendship, but it suggests a common interest, geology. Another interesting feature of this letter is the signature. It's signed plain Sam Crockett. It's not entirely clear when, or indeed why, Crockett added the Rutherford to his name, but the matriculation book for New College 1883 shows the first instance of him adopting the R. In 1885 he signed into New College as S. Rutherford Crockett. So this transformation, which is likely to do with his growing confidence in becoming a writer, even as he was becoming a minister, was happening in the mid-1880s as he transitioned from the life of a student to that of the workplace. The religious connotations of the added Rutherford — Samuel Rutherford was a famous Covenanting minister and author, most famous for Lex Rex — and the influence of R.L. Stevenson offer possible explanations for the choice. S.R.Crockett does sound far more literary than Sam Crockett after all. The transformation does seem to be a statement of intent, but it is speculation on my part. 4 years later there's another letter to Hornell. Thankfully this one's typed. It's dated January the 13th, 1887, and comes from the Free Church Manse in Pennycook, where Crockett had recently taken up the ministry. He writes,
My dear fellow, how are you? Glad to see of success of exhibition. Gladder still to see of success at Glasgow Art Club. You deserve it, and far more. I knew it was in you. Go on and prosper. I am just as busy as I can work. I fear this is a selfish letter, but I want to remind you about your promise about your picture. I'm going south to bring up the Lady Beatrice after the middle of March, and I would like to have your picture to welcome her when she comes, so that she may welcome you when the cheerful wind blows you to Pennycook. All I say is, give us a big enough one, and I know you will make it good. It shall have the best wall space. I hope this is not too barefaced, but you promise frankly, as I remind you frankly also. Beautiful weather, isn't it? I suppose as bad at Kirkcudbright as elsewhere. I am as busy as I can be, but looking forward to the 16th of March and the resulting holiday, which by the kindness of the congregation I am to be enabled to take in Italy. Good, isn't it? There are several art patrons in my congregation, the Cowan of Beeslack and Valleyfield, so send a picture that maybe won't be at all thrown away. I suppose you are busy for Glasgow and Edinburgh now. Don't work to kill yourself just yet. Remember me to Mrs. and Miss Hornell and my other friends, and to the picture that is coming to be a familiar daily friend to me. I am, my dear friend, yours as always, S.R.Crockett. P.S. The E.C. Minister and I are great friends. I preach for him on Sunday evening, and we are going to exchange pulpits some morning without letting people know and preach some old sermons.
The Lady Beatrice referred to here was Ruth Mary Milner, whom Crockett married in March 1887. That Hornell painted the picture Crockett gave as a wedding present to his wife suggests a close relationship between the two men. However, the picture of Lady Beatrice that I've tracked down was not painted by Hornell, but was drawn by William MacGeorge, Crockett's boyhood friend, and is found in the flyleaf of Crockett's early self-published volume of poetry, Dulce Cor, from 1886. Which leads us to the connection between Crockett and William Stewart MacGeorge itself. The two had been classmates at Cowper's School in Cotton Street, Castle Douglas, referenced in the novel Rogue's Island. They also lodged together at various times at St Leonard's Street, in Edinburgh between 1878 and 1882. And the story Mac's Enteric Fever, found in the collection Bog, Myrtle and Peat, published 1895, offers a humorous insight into their relationship at the time. You can learn plenty about the relationship through his fictional stories, and Mac's Enteric Fever is a good case in point. MacGeorge also features as Jerry McWhirter in The Raiders and Fitzgeorge in the posthumously published Rogue's Island, as well as making an appearance in the children's novel Sweethearts at Home, 1912, as Mac the Painter, aka the Little Brown Bear, an avuncular figure who tells Crockett's children tales of their father. These tales cross-reference with the stories in Little Esson. Sweethearts at Home is ostensibly written and narrated by Crockett's daughter Maisie. It offers just one of many examples of Crockett playing with narrative voice. Here it is.
Twice travels paths. Then we went to Kirkcudbright, where there's an old castle, very dirty, but where we stayed in the loveliest old inn. It was so comfy and homelike at the Selkirk that it seemed as if the hostelry had wandered out into the country one day and forgot the way to come back again. We liked it so much because it was kept by a nice jolly man whose mother had been good to father once when he was ill, and who made the nicest cakes. We were in clover there, I can tell you. Especially because Mac, the painter, whom when I was very little I once named the Little Brown Bear, came for walks with us and made us laugh at dinner till we youngsters nearly got sent from the table. Yet it wasn't a bit our fault. He told us lots of things, and I could see father listening with all his ears and not even checking Sir Toady when he stole the sugar, though he saw him. I was sure that something would come out of that. You see, I know father's ways. And so it comes about that I don't need to write of any of the funny things that we heard that night, or the nights that followed. You have only to read them in the chapters of Little Esson. The part all about Lardust too, and the trip in the caravan. I think that father really ought to have sent some of the money he got to the Little Brown Bear, but I don't believe he ever did. Mac owes me more than that, he said when I asked him about it. I brought him up by hand. I presume he meant the way Hugh John, my brother, brings up Sir Toady, though that is with both hands, sometimes feet too.
MacGeorge and Hornell both entered the Trustees' Academy, now Edinburgh College of Art, in 1880. It was on the mound where the Royal Scottish Academy now is. Perhaps this is how Crockett and Hornell met? MacGeorge won prizes as a student and had a work shown at the RSA in 1881. In 1883, MacGeorge and Hornell travelled to Antwerp to study, returning in 1884. MacGeorge is considered the most naturalistic of the Galloway artists, as his landscape pieces show. Over the years, he had several works exhibited at the RSA. When Crockett found fame in the early 1890s, MacGeorge was still, if not struggling, then certainly in need of financial backing. And Crockett was always a true friend. A flurry of letters to his publisher in the autumn of 1893, when the illustrated edition of The Stickit Minister was being pulled together, show Crockett asking repeatedly for MacGeorge to be given a commission. Crockett describes him as a landscape man, but also clever at figure. T. Fisher Unwin, the publisher, wanted to go with a more established artist, Joseph Pennell, but Crockett kept pleading for MacGeorge. At one stage, asked by Unwin for examples of MacGeorge's work, he writes,
Dear Unwin, I don't have any of MacGeorge's recent drawings. He is yet a young man and has immensely improved during these last years. The Dolce Cor drawings, which he did in 1884 and 1885 for me, were done when he was at Paris, a lad of 20. And the wash drawings for a little poem of mine in Bards of Galloway was done in 1888. He is 5 years older and better now, but that, I think, is very charming and reproduces beautifully, and better, I think, than anything in with old Vogue folk. But he will send you a specimen drawing, and then you can arrange with him. He would be heart and soul for the work, and give more than he was paid for to make a fine book. Please accept a copy of Dolce Cor. It is out of print, but I have half a dozen, and kindly send back Bards of Galloway. I have only one. Regarding Pennell's drawings, I think there would be no difficulty about their doing with McGee's work. His would be quite up to the best. I would favour printing most of the illustrations in the text. It makes a book so much prettier.
In the end, Unwin got his way, and of the 20-odd illustrations in the Stickit Minister, MacGeorge only contributed 2. But it was not for lack of Crockett's trying, and Crockett himself contributed towards the cost of the illustrations.